You're listening to the Fanboy Garage Podcast.
And welcome to the Fanboy Garage. I'm Chris Lasanti, joined by my co-hosts Vanana.
Hi, everyone.
And Aaron Varola.
Yo, what's up, folks? Welcome to a very bald, very clean episode 129 of the Fanboy Garage. So happy to have you guys with us. Vanana is not bald at all, but Chris and I, little shine. Well, for those of you that are watching us on YouTube, we've got a nice little glow going on the foreheads. Anyways, welcome back to another episode. We're very happy to have you guys once again with us. There's so much to discuss, so much to unpack. WandaVision continues to intrigue. We've got the end of Cobra Kai that finally Vanana watched. We've got a new Superman trailer. We have Kong versus Godzilla. Zack Snyder is allegedly moving back to a 4-hour film. So let's dig in with WandaVision, where it all gets crazy. What'd you guys think?
So episode 3, now in color.
Yes.
It was cool. I mean, look, it continues being a really great tribute to all of the types of shows that I grew up watching and still watch when I need to be like in a happy place. The attention to detail in creating like the sitcom universe is pretty amazing. Like they have the look, they have the lighting down, obviously the aesthetics, the costumes, the sets, but even like the subtle shifts in the laugh track and things like that are and the little musical cues and stuff that relate to, like, obviously the Brady Bunch was like a big inspiration for this show. That stuff kind of blows me away. Like I love all of that. And, you know, as far as like where it fits in the MCU aspects of it, I mean, we're starting to move a little bit now, right? Like, and we got our, not that we really needed it, I guess, but our confirmation right at the end of the episode that, yes, clearly this is some type of parallel universe or whatever. And there is a real world out there or another world out there. And we got to see that. So yeah, this episode was full of all kinds of goodness. I think it built on what I started to love after the second episode. And now I'm just like in full on, like, can't wait for the next episode mode. So,
Yeah, I think this episode had a nice balance of the sitcom trope that we're going with. You know, it had its like little funny, like laughy moments with the neighbors, you know, but the seams are ripping a little bit more, you know, like that veil on reality in this episode. We got so much more. And that was so exciting to kind of unpack and take in as you're watching it. You know, the neighbors kind of like talking and trying to tell Vision something that they know. And Wanda talking to Monica being like, what did you just say? Like, those were really tense moments that you're just like, oh my God, are they going to say something? Are they going to ruin this, you know, fabrication, this reality that's fabricated? So I think the tension was really high in this episode. And I really enjoyed that up until the very end when she, spoiler alert, kicks her out. You know, like that little glimpse of where they were and where she ends up. It's like, ooh, like, what are they going to do in the next episode after that?
I am so intrigued by this show. I said last episode, we've never seen anything like this on television before. I don't think, right? And
no,
it is it has me on the edge of my seat because I don't know where they're going with any of this, right? And I know that there are comic books that follow bits and pieces of this, but this is a very, very different take on some of those stories. And, you know, I think I was trying to wrap my head around it, and I was thinking about Watchmen and how the thing that was irritating me the most about Watchmen was that it was like, there's a story being told, but there are questions that I have asked that need to be answered, right? Like, where's Ozymandias? Where's Dr. Manhattan? Like, what's the purpose of these people here? And I'm going through the same sort of motion with this show, but it's not bothering me as much because I've been in familiar territory with the Watchmen. So I'm like, I'm cool with the ride. The one thing that they're starting to answer some questions along the way, and they're very subtle. So my question was, after last episode, were like, are these people real, right? And or are they figments of Wanda's imagination or her new reality? My suspicion is that she's taken over a town of people of Westview, and she is forcing these people to act her show out for her, right? Because
Interesting.
when Monica gets launched out of this reality, all of the sword like barrier is around a town called Westview.
Right.
And so my inclination is that some of these people are real. Most of them don't know what's happening until Wanda starts to lose control, and then they slip out of that false reality or her reality. And then they wonder, what's going on. I don't know about what Herb. I know that Agnes has a substantial role to play in this, how that comes to life, and whether or not she's a person who's keeping Wanda captive in this place. I don't know. Herb's role, no idea. I don't know if he was slipping in and out of that reality as well, as like as Wanda's getting bigger, as Wanda's losing control or subconsciously using her powers for growing the children, going into labor. It's starting to break, as you said, the seams are starting to split. So those seams start to split when she starts to lose control.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I noticed, and I rewatched all the episodes last night because Jess was like, "Oh, I guess I should watch WandaVision." Is yeah, I was like, "Yeah, we should watch that." Is that everybody that snaps the reality that has nothing to do with her, like Dottie in the second episode and Mr. Hart in the first episode, they have harm caused to them. Like Wanda does harm to them, right? So she choked like unknowingly, but obviously if he's in this world and she's controlling it, she caused him to choke on that grape or whatever it was, strawberry. Dottie breaks the glass and cuts her hand. But for Vision, whenever Vision questions his reality, she reverses time and snaps him out of it. And so I went back because Jess was like, "Oh, like you catch me up on like this relationship thing," and so I went back, and he says to her in Infinity War, "You can never hurt me," right? Like while she's trying to destroy the Mind Stone. So there's some of that stuff that's being pulled in, and I'm literally like, it's a feast for me when I'm watching this show because there's so many little nuggets and and all of the tropes and stuff that kind of call back to the shows that we've all watched before watching Nick and Night or whatever. That's always fun to kind of rewatch and re-experience through this new format of a show. But then there's all of those Marvel type nuggets that are in there, the callback to Ultron and Pietro and her singing.
That's a major point in this too, right? Because that's the moment where like you could see, clearly Wanda knows, right, is aware of the situation, but when she hears, oh, he was murdered by Ultron, right, like things get dark, like you could just see darkness,
like her whole demeanor changed.
And ultimately Geraldine's character gets banished from world, whatever it is. So yeah, and that's a direct reference obviously to the MCU, and we expect we're gonna start to see more and more of that type of stuff as the thing goes on. I mean, thinking back to what you were saying earlier about how they use the different comic storylines, and they're just taking like bits and pieces of different iconic storylines and weaving it into their own little tale. I mean, that's something that's very MCU, right? It's something that they've done. I don't want to say, they've done it often, right? They did it with the Winter Soldier. I mean, that was not a true telling of the Winter Soldier comic book and storyline. They did it in Iron Man 3 with Extremis, right? It was not a true telling of that whole, I mean, true to the comic version. It was their version of that storyline. So we've seen them, even Civil War. I mean, Civil War they took a concept and then fit it to what they needed it to be, right, for their movie. So we've seen that happen before. And I know that's something that when it came to the movies would drive a lot of like hardcore comic book fans crazy. Like, oh, they called it Civil War, and it's not exactly Civil War, or oh, it's the
Mm.
Winter. But it's interesting that with this show, it seems like the hardcore comic fans are eating this up.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is because they haven't named it. It's not a movie that's named after an iconic comic book storyline. So you're
Right.
not right away, like in your mind, you're not expecting it to be a telling of that. And they use these aspects of the comics and of these storylines as a way that where it becomes like Easter eggs and fan service and things that they can actually sink their teeth into, and where they can say, rather than sitting in a movie called Civil War and you're sitting there saying, well, that's not it. That's not it. Here you're sitting there saying, oh, well, that's part of, it's like the reverse, right? And you're trying to figure out, well, where did they derive that from? And where did they? So I think that's become part of the fun, along with all the sitcom stuff, which almost serves in some ways as a distraction.
Yeah.
Right. Because there's like so many things to like feast your eyes on and to like dig into and look at, that it's like you don't have to necessarily be 100% focused on like every little detail of the story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is that it's actually funny. Like in the parts where they do stuff, like I find myself like audibly laughing.
I was just gonna say the stork.
That hilarious.
Like, how hilarious was that? It was just farcical. And at first I was like, what is that bird doing there? And then I was like, oh, it's a stork because she's about to deliver the baby, like it was just those little things that make it kind of quirky. Yeah.
I mean, there's him running over to get to the doctor, and they're saying like, oh, let's go to the kitchen. He's like, as long as it actually involves walking, like that's like funny stuff. But then it gets dark because when Vision is letting him go, he goes, hopefully you can make it to your trip to Bermuda. And he's like, small towns are often hard to escape.
Right.
And it's like, oh man, and he kind of gives him this look like, why would you say that? And then of course the conversation between Agnes and Herb before he, after he cut through the fence, which was like, he's glitching. And and the funny thing is, like, I got nuts. Like, I put on the closed captioning. I was like, I want to know exactly what those two were saying, because I couldn't catch some of it. And it was, they were asking about Geraldine. Is she still in there with her? Like, does she know what's going on? You know what I mean? Like, so that's the part that I'm like, oh my God, do these two know what's actually happening? Like, I think Agnes knows what's happening.
Or at least she suspects that something is wrong, because the thing that she says is she has no home.
Yeah.
But so like, where is she coming from?
Here's the funny thing though. If like on the rewatch, Geraldine comes into Wanda and Vision's house and says, hey, do you need a bucket? Water was literally coming down from my ceiling. Every pipe burst, and I need to get a bucket to bail myself out. In what home?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That was her cover.
Yeah. So it's like, but then on the flip side, how did she know?
Right.
So she must have been monitoring their show. Like,
and then like entered.
Right. The other thing too is they say that there's speculation that the helicopter that Wanda picks up out of the bush is the helicopter that dropped off Geraldine or Monica, because you'll hear it. It's in Wanda's ears, and to the viewer, it sounds like a lawnmower.
Well,
and
that
crash.
That makes sense, because Agnes and Wanda were talking right after the helicopter crashes, and then they were talking about going over to Dottie's and like impressing her and doing that whole thing, and then Geraldine shows up at that meeting.
Yep.
And tries to talk to her. So so maybe she was listening.
And then the thing is, so Geraldine kind of doesn't know what she's doing. Like, I don't. That's a weird part about Geraldine, is that I don't know if she knew that once she's in the world, she knows that she's in the world, or if she becomes part of the role. So like,
so interesting.
She asks her, like, Wanda asks her, oh, like, I forgot what the question was, but she was like, I don't actually know what I'm doing here. And then she's like, oh, and then she asks her, oh, so what's your name? And she's like, Geraldine. There's like a little hesitation there. So there's but
she confidently says to her like, oh, you know, your brother, he was killed by Ultron, in a way that makes you think that like that didn't just come to her. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I
She
think,
knows.
yeah, I mean, I think she's been aware for the most part this whole
But
time.
watch her. Rewatch it, because I thought that too. But there's a moment where it seems like she's being snapped out of something.
Well, that's possible because I think
As Wanda is kind of going through the like, oh, I was a twin. I feel like as she pulls herself, as Wanda pulls herself, her mind out of this reality and into the things that have happened before, people start to break off.
right.
You know what I mean? So it's so like, and so I don't know if Geraldine snaps out of it a little bit and was like, oh, he was, because then at the same point was her attempt to try to pull Wanda back to reality?
No, I think
Or did it
she
just
made a
slip out of her mouth?
I think she made a mistake, because when she realizes that Wanda kind of like starts questioning her and what she's doing there, right? If she's supposed to be undercover, trying to pretend, you know, to live in this world, you can't blow your cover. It's just like a undercover agent, you know, all of a sudden they know who you are. You kind of have to cover that up. The look on her face was like, oh, snap.
Yeah,
like
I just said that.
I did not mean to say that. And she looked really scared of Wanda. She wasn't like, well, I'm just gonna tell you how it is. No, she was like, what?
No, she's
what?
like, oh,
No.
you want me to tell you how great you are again?
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna replay that stuff again, and then
and the thing is, we also don't know what the end game is, no pun intended here, of this thing too. So, right, so we know that people are monitoring this and they are watching it, right? So that is a thing. And so why, right? Like, we're not really sure what any of this is. So is the goal to get her out of this? You know, is the goal to just try to figure out what it is the goal to see how they can use this to open doors to other things? Like, we don't know what the goal is and what Sword's intentions are, or anybody's intentions are with this whole situation, and how it's ultimately going to, for our purposes as viewers, lead us into this next phase, right, of the MCU.
Yeah,
so part of it too.
We really don't know who has the upper hand here.
No.
Right. And we don't know who the good guy or the bad guy is.
Right.
Too.
Yeah, like Wanda could have slipped off off the deep end, like in grief. We don't know, right? We don't know if maybe, because in the comics, so Agnes, Agatha, I forgot her freaking last name again, the witch, helps Wanda train and hone her powers. So that may have been a thing that was happening at Westview. Somehow Wanda loses control and locks everybody into this reality. We don't know, because it just, again, it picked up.
Right.
See, this is the thing. This is what, going back to my reference to the Watchmen, like, there's a lot of missing pieces here, a lot of question marks. But as we're going along the journey, they're giving us some sizable breadcrumbs to kind of snack on and help to figure it out. But like, I think the payoff will be there. Because of the confidence that Marvel had in the show to move it, to go like, this is the thing that we're leading off with for the MCU.
Well, what an exciting start, because they are planting so many seeds. You know, this is the kickstart of phase 4, right?
Yeah.
We also have, you know, her and Vision's twins, which people are suspecting might make appearance later in like a Young Avengers like team up.
I am investing in it, because I bought the first Young Avengers comic book appearance with the kids and all that stuff. So hey, please use them, because you're just going to make the value of my comic book go through the roof.
Yeah. And like, if you think about it, you know, and like when we started watching, like all these MCU films, like starting with like the first Iron Man, or, you know, you got tidbits of stuff, but you didn't know how to put it together until the very end, where you're like, oh, and so many people are sleuths and like investigators and writing articles about it. So to me, it's kind of exciting to be in this moment right now, even though we don't know what's going on, but we are witnessing something really special, because it's going to set the tone for the whole slate of movies that, well, if if they come out, right? Whenever they come out, it's setting the tone right now.
Oh, and it's not just the movies, but it's these other shows.
And the other
Yeah.
shows, right,
Because
right.
you have things like She-Hulk, right? You have things like Moon Knight, stuff like that
Right.
are coming out, Ironheart, that are not thus far tied to the, I mean, this is all the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I get
Right.
it, but like they're not tied to any big screen property right now, right?
Which is so great because I want to see new heroes. I want to see new storylines. I want to see people that maybe I've heard of and mentioned, but have never really followed or know that much about.
Yeah.
You know, so
I mean, they're setting it up for sure. I mean, the new Hawkeye series is going to set up.
Right.
What's her name? Kate Cassidy? Is that something like that?
Kate Bishop.
Kate Bishop. Sorry, Kate Cassidy. is an
Kate
actress.
Bishop.
Yeah, Kate Bishop, and now we've got the twins, and then there's Miss Marvel, which they showed a trailer for
Right.
as well. So Kamala Khan. It's gonna be.
And is that going to be a Disney Plus thing? Probably, right? Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you could, because they're
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
have to set this up too. I mean, now they're working in. So let's pretend we existed in a universe where the Netflix Marvel
Alternate.
series were going to be as tied to the MCU as they were originally supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
And started out for about a minute and a half as being right in
Yep,
that same universe. Is this going to be a bigger scale version of that? Like, are we going to get a Disney Plus universe within the MCU that features these characters that we get to know on Disney Plus? Are they gonna start to maybe build to something bigger that's going to be a Disney Plus thing that sure will tie in them with the movies, and I think at some point, but like, will we get something like that?
I mean, I think the finale of WandaVision will probably help answer that question. I would say without a doubt Loki is in some capacity, because from what I understand in some of the trailers, and like, you know, I watch these YouTubers that are like breaking shit down shot for shot, which I love that shit, like shot for shot. Some dude, like this guy named the Canadian Lad, is watching it at like 0.25 XP, like so slow. And I'm loving it because he's like, "Oh, did you see this?" And I'm like, "No, I did not see that, dude." Because you're watching it like, you know what I mean. So he's saying that there's a female Loki in the Loki trailer. And I'm like, what?
Interesting.
And so yeah. Anyway, so he breaks down all these shots and then goes back to, like, you know, behind the scenes footage of this particular actress, and I'm like, that's dope. But then if there's a female Loki, that means that there's multiple versions of Loki, right? So you've got the multiverse opening its door. So Loki will be another one of those.
Yeah.
You know,
unless it's tied into the concept that like the Loki show I've heard compared to like Quantum Leap.
Right.
Like dark, evil Quantum Leap. So maybe it's him in somebody, you know what I mean? Like, you never know where that show could be.
Yeah.
But
it's great. And then, you know, but then there's like a shot of he's like in a church or something like that, and they have like this red character that's on stained glass window, and people are saying that that's Mephisto.
Right.
He's a major villain.
Yeah.
And they're saying Mephisto is the villain of WandaVision.
Right.
So I'm like, this is dope. This is great, because then you got Ghost Rider, you got all these other characters that tied in Mephisto. I love this shit. Like, I mean, just get me a big fork. You know, those the big wooden fork and spoon that your grandparents used to hang on the wall. Yeah, give those to me. I'm gonna be.
Or in an Italian house you got hit with.
Okay.
You were bad. Yeah, the wooden spoon.
I just got hit with like chancletas and belts.
Yeah,
hangers for me.
Oh, I got hit with that too.
Thinking about what Tavo had, we were talking to Tavo about a few weeks ago, like having this, like these streaming services, right? Gives you the freedom to really start to explore and expand and get ultra geeky, like with these types of things, right? Like you can open up, because now you're not trying to figure out like, oh, there's too many characters. Oh, I don't want to cram too many characters. Like we don't have room for all of this because we're going to have like 3 or 4 movies a year or 3 movies a year. And that's it. Now you have like, I mean, you could do 2-3 shows a month if you wanted to. Right. And then still have your movies. And I mean, the budgets, like I saw something like the budget for Falcon and Winter Soldier was like, move like a cinematic budget. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know if
I mean, it looks
$100 million or if it was like 150 million or 250. It was some insane number that was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
believe
it looks like it.
Yeah.
Because
That's what really
I
helped.
mean, think about it. You actually you need more content. You got to pack more stuff in all of these episodes. Unlike a movie where you kind of have this formula and you always have to do a lot of cuts, right?
Mm.
Like in movies, they film a lot of scenes, and sometimes they always say, "Oh, I didn't make it in the editing room," or "I ended up on the cutting room floor." But now with these shows, you have like 9 or 10 episodes. They need to fill those in. It's
Mm.
Yeah, I mean,
almost harder.
more or less though, because but then if you think about it, like a movie these days is going for like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Right? 2 hours 15 minutes, give or take. And like these shows are only 30 minutes, 28 minutes. You know what I'm saying? Like they're so short. Like WandaVision, we were able to go through the first 3 episodes in like an hour and a half,
Mm-hmm.
not even, and like still have time to watch another show. Like you can binge watch the first 3 episodes, and that's what I'm saying. I'm like, they're doing it so short, but there's so much meat in those,
Right.
like, but maybe it isn't. I don't
That's
know.
okay. That's the other thing that these new upcoming shows are breaking. They're breaking this concept that like dramas are an hour long
Yeah.
and comedies are always like 30 minutes.
Yep.
Now, WandaVision, not exactly a drama, not exactly a comedy, right? It kind of lands like in between, but maybe more so comedy because we're talking about sitcoms, so I'm used to the 30-minute format, right? But then something like The Mandalorian, like that's 30 minutes. That's kind of
30
like
minutes too.
yeah, and you're used to like, okay, like dramatic show, 1 hour, The Crown and all of these shows on Netflix. But I think Disney Plus is taking it to this in a different space. They're really not adhering by that rule, and not, it doesn't need to have a big implication, but that's also kind of interesting to note, so that when you do have 9 episodes that are just 30 minutes long, it's definitely like easier to do than 9 episodes of hour-long episodes.
Yeah.
I
mean, it feels like they're like teaser trailers in a way. Like they're just whetting your appetite, because like I come off of that show and I'm like, I need another one. Oh my God.
And The Mandalorian takes it to a whole nother extreme, because
I mean,
like
yeah,
they're
some of those
literally
episodes are so
like
short.
they're fitting, they don't have a set time for anything. Like there's 40-minute episodes, there's 25-minute episodes, there's
Right.
35 minutes. It's like whatever they need to tell their story.
Different director each episode.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
a whole different, that's a great way of storytelling. And you're right. I mean, this is something that we talked about, I don't even know, in the early days of this podcast, right? How the differences between like British television and like American television.
Yep.
And how one of the things I loved about British television was the fact that, and not so much episode length, but season length. Like they just did as many episodes as they needed to do to tell their story. If it was 3, it was 3. If it was 6, it was 6. If it was 20, it was 20. And so like they call them series over there. We call them seasons here. But so their seasons would be like, like the original Office, there's like 11 episodes or 12 episodes of that show. Like the Ricky Gervais version. I mean, a show like that I love, the IT Crowd. You're talking about like 6 episode seasons, and not a lot of them. And then they just end them. If it ends after 2 seasons, because they finished telling their story, they did. Like they're not obligated to they don't feel obligated to do the traditional, like, okay, 13 episodes, 23 episodes,
Right.
30 minutes, and it's going to go until basically nobody wants to watch the show anymore. And now we're starting to see, because of streaming, I think more so, and more creative freedom, you're starting to see a shift here with these shows where it's like, we're going to do what we need to do to tell our story. If it's 9 episodes, 10 episodes, 8 episodes, 20 episodes, half hour, whatever, like we're going to give you whatever we need. And that's why when you were saying, Aaron, about how like feels like there's so much meat to these episodes, because there is, because you're not getting that extra 20 minutes of filler every week, or you're not getting that extra like 5 episodes of filler where they take an episode off just to, because they needed to, because they only had so much story to tell.
I like that. I like that so much better. We're also seeing some shows with, like a limited series format. Like I think like a Queen's Gambit, even though I didn't see it yet, I think that was the format for Queen's Gambit. So that's like I agree. That's kind of
And
cool.
Watchmen, right?
Watchmen, yeah.
Told their story, and that was
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just watched The Undoing on HBO.
What's
It's
that?
Nicole Kidman, Hugh Grant, Donald Sutherland. It's on HBO Max.
New?
It was November, December-ish.
Okay.
I
That's
won't spoil anything for you. You should check it out.
That's new.
It's an interesting drama. It's a limited series.
The Undoing.
Yeah. Check that out. But yeah, I mean, look for I dig the shortness of WandaVision. It reminds me, again, going back to playing all those nostalgic vibes of like the short show, and it kind of has its little arc. What they're, it's the delivery, it's it's the talent show, it's the dinner, you know what I mean? Like all of those little tropes. I love it all, and I love how short it is, because then at the end of it, they're like, boop, nope, it's still an MCU show, and you're like,
I know. I'm like I hate you because you like left me hanging now, and now I can't wait for the next episode. I can't wait for Fridays,
Yeah. And it is, the thing is too, it's actually a delight to binge it as well. But because it's so short, again, you go through it very fast, and you're still left at the end of like, that 3-week binge that I'd say it's a 2-week binge with Jess, and she's like, wait, what's going on now? I'm like, well, now you got to watch it week to week with me.
Yeah, I rewatched the first 2 episodes before I watched episode 3, and I actually wound up enjoying episode 1 more on second
episode
viewing
1 is
than I did good. After the first viewing, and I think a big reason for that was I had come to grips with what it was, right? So since that episode is very sitcom based, like you really don't get a lot of, I mean, there's some things, but that one, it's still very much like they're not letting you in too much on what's happening. I just got to enjoy it a little bit more, like knowing what it was going to be, taking in like all of the fun of it. And I mean, look, Paul Bettany should be in the sitcom.
He's awesome.
He's got perfect comic timing. Like he needs, I will be very disappointed. And I know it's not going to happen, but probably, but I would love to see this guy in like a half-hour weekly, like sitcom.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's hilarious.
Yeah.
He's so good. Like that. He grabs the papaya and he's like, oh, I can't wait to be a papaya. That joke.
And he's got the delivery. He's got the physicality. Like he could even be like a physical comedian if he needed to.
Yeah.
His
my God,
expressions.
Like episode 2. Like he kills it. He kills it. You know what I mean? Like when he starts flying and then she like attaches the rope to him and he like swings forward. I'm laughing my ass off. I thought it was great. And then he's like, I literally, I blurted out laughing because he's like flourish, and like you're not supposed to say it out loud. He's like, whatever. It's great. It's great stuff. It's good stuff.
Well, we all are in love.
Too, I think for some folks who were expecting a traditional MCU type content, like a movie or show or whatever, I'm glad that it's not that, because it's a palate cleanser in my mind. It really is. You know what I mean? Like the balls of Marvel to be like, we're gonna do this show like our show. Like a legit sitcom, and we're gonna have all of the bells and whistles to get people really excited, and I love that.
Yeah,
the audacity of it.
I think Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to be fairly straight MCU stuff. I think
it's going to be like a buddy cop, like a buddy cop show.
But probably not to the extent.
But probably not. No,
this is a sitcom though. It's not going to be. But I think that some of these other shows going forward will be Loki. I think has potential to be a little fun, but still, I think they're going to be more. Nothing's going to be like this because this is a unique thing that they're doing.
Yeah, this is. I mean, this is great. Great
It's a
stuff.
great time to be a MCU fan, you know, like when someone just hits you with WandaVision, what they're doing and how much confidence they have behind it. Because like, I just think about what they were doing in the pitch room or what they were thinking about when they were writing this. It can rub a lot of people off the wrong way or they don't understand it, but
Yeah.
they were just like, no, this is our vision. No pun intended. And we are going to hit you with it. And as an audience member, you just have to just go for the ride because it's just so exciting,
Yeah.
right? Like you just trust them. Like I trust them that I'm going to be entertained every week. I have no qualms about it. I know the finale is going to hit me with something big.
Mhm.
I'm just strapped in. Like I'm not worried about this ride at all. You know, like I'm not scared. I'm just like, all right, cool. I'm just going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And that's it. And sometimes, you know, with other shows or other movies or whatnot, sometimes you're skeptical. You're like, I don't know, how's this gonna be, you know?
Yeah. I mean, for me, when we get right into it, I'm like, well, I guess this is what it is. You know, I'm gonna go along for the ride and see how it goes. But like for the most part, I'm like, I'm enjoying kind of the throwback vibes of what they were doing, you know, and it's just it's interesting, to see it with like a character like Vision whose face is purple and the whole
Yeah.
like
It's
bewitched.
just weird. Like I was just gonna say, it's like taking a psychedelic, even though I've never done it, but I've heard you need to show up ready to go for the ride and just
Yeah.
let it take you. And I feel like WandaVision, as weird and quirky as it is, everything is just so weird about the show and all the different mishmash of elements that
Yeah.
we're used to. Like they really bring the audience into it, tugging at our heartstrings with all the sitcom tropes.
And I'll just clue you guys in on something that folks out there are speculating on, right? So the commercials that are dropped in these
Mm-hmm.
episodes, so they are in some ways like they are all revolving around time. And if you remember anything from Infinity War, the one thing that Vision says to Wanda is, "I wish we had more time," right? So there's a lot. There's overtones of having unlimited time, creating your own reality. The same two actors are playing typically the wife and husband thing. There's speculation that those are Wanda's parents,
Right.
I've seen that.
right? Which is awesome because and then the other thing too is I heard somebody did a comparison of the toaster oven, like the sound that the toaster oven makes
Was
is
like
the
the
same
bomb.
sound that the bomb, the Stark bomb, like, so when in Iron Man, when he sees the Stark bomb hit right next to him, it makes the same exact noise. So
Mhm.
I'm like, oh my god,
And it's like beeping red.
yeah,
Like the toaster
it
oven,
goes off like
yeah.
a bomb. Yeah. So there's all types of stuff, and then the Strucker, the Baron von Strucker callback. He's the person that created the twins. The direct callback to Hydra. There's all of those things swirling. So I'm just like,
Aw.
oh my
The
god.
time thing just gave me goosebumps. And yeah, that just gave me goosebumps
Yeah.
when he says that, because that's all you wish for, when you lose someone.
Yeah.
Sure.
More
And
time.
there was a way that they could have done this show that could have just been dark and
Yeah.
could have been just weird and almost sort of sad and depressing. And
Right.
who knows, maybe we get there, but by doing it this way, it's so disarming and it's so it's so inviting, even
Yeah.
though you realize when you think about what's happening here, it's sad and tragic, but you don't feel that because
No.
you're watching this sitcom that makes you feel good, and
Right.
the music and the jokes and the laugh track and all of those things are a way to just distract you from the fact that this is a tragic story, whether she's being manipulated or she's doing the manipulating or
Right.
both, whatever the case may be. Is this is about her not wanting to let go of her love, who is gone, right? And just trying to give herself this perfect life. that's a sad story, but it's
Yeah.
not the way they're
Yeah.
telling it. And that's kind of a brilliant thing.
I think she's gonna have to leave him there towards the end of the
Well,
season.
Uh-oh.
You know?
comics say otherwise.
Okay.
But
Okay. And
yeah.
if you think about it in that lens, you know, you think of Captain America, you know,
leaving
who
Peggy.
went back and just lived a whole life with her, right?
Yep.
And you think of what Wanda's doing, living all of these different decades. It's like she chose all of these different lifetimes to experience with him. That if they're setting this up to at the end where she has to leave,
Yeah,
that
she's
like
gonna somehow get pushed into her reality because she has nothing to go off of.
yeah,
Yeah.
and even if like you said, rumors say otherwise, it could be a temporary thing,
Yeah.
but it could very well have her make that big choice or force her to make that big choice.
Yeah.
At the
So
end.
I mean, if we were to get really speculate on anything that's happening, so we have to look at some of the trailers where like Vision says to Wanda, "This is our world. We should fight for it."
Mhm.
Go into full on action mode, and he kind of zooms up. But then there's also scenes where it looks like people are asleep, and they're all like everyone's glitching out, or everyone's kind of stuck, and then Vision touches, I think it's Agnes, he touches her and she's like, "You're dead." You know what I mean? Like, so who knows? Like if he ends up stepping, because we now know that people can be extricated from this reality, whether they are real people or now part of this world that she's created, because we know Vision is dead. But what if Vision escapes from this world? Is Vision back? Did she recreate the Mind Stone? We don't know any of these things, right?
Mhm.
We have suspicion that she may have recreated the Mind Stone because there's a trailer shot where we see it coming back together. So who knows? But like I said, I'm on that saddle. I'm riding off with this. I'm along for the ride. So let's do it.
I
We're
hope she
in.
leaves Paul Bettany in a world where he gets to be in a sitcom every week.
Just replaying it
Being
back.
selfish. Yeah, that's okay. And whatever, pick an era, whatever you want to pick.
Yeah.
70s,
What was
50s.
that? Do you remember that show? No, it was not a show. I'm sorry, it was a movie with John Ritter.
Yeah. Oh, that was
I watched it recently, and
the one where he's goes through like the TV.
the TV. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like thinking about that when Paul Bettany jumping through all of these these
Yeah.
TV shows, and then
That's
John
it.
Ritter actually falls on the couch of Three's Company, and they're like, "Where have you been?" And he's like, "Ah."
Yeah.
I forgot the name of that movie. I just
Yeah.
watched it recently.
But
Anyways.
yeah. Anyway,
All right.
so I guess the other news. So sticking with TV, since obviously that's the thing right now. They released the trailer for Superman and Lois,
Yeah.
which for the CW, and I mean it doesn't, at least based on the
Doesn't
trailer,
look
it
like a
doesn't-
CW
no,
show.
it sure doesn't. And this looks like a big epic story, and it looks cinematic, and it looks
Yeah.
really cool, and I'm
Do,
pretty excited about it.
they put
So,
a Zack Snyder wash on that
they
trailer.
did.
That color, the muted color palette,
Yeah.
Mm.
it has that Man of Steel. I mean,
He
our
does
good
have a Man of
listener and
Steel
friend,
feel.
yeah, Ron Diesel called that out, and I remember watching and going like, he's 100% right, 100% right.
Mhm.
It has that, and it has those undertones, you
Yeah.
know. But I like Man of Steel. I love Man of Steel. I'm cool with it. Let's do it.
Right. And it's this is still a they're at a point here where it's a developing story, right? So again, there can be progression.
Mhm.
We don't know where it's headed. I mean, not that this is related to Smallville at all, but like Smallville started out as a show where it wasn't going to even be, it was going to be a show that was a Superman show without Superman, right? Like it wasn't going to
Right.
be about powers or anything. It was going to be like a coming of age story about a guy in a small town. And while we would all know that this is the guy that becomes Superman, that was never really in their plans. And then somewhere along the way, it became like a full-on superhero show.
Yeah.
And then he eventually did become the Superman that we know and
No, that's at the end.
that whole thing. Yeah.
When they
Mhm.
put
And
on
just
the
like
house.
Gotham too. Gotham, again, not related to this, but Gotham was supposed to be like set in the Batman universe. It was not supposed to be a Batman show at all. It was supposed to be a cop
detective
drama,
show, yeah.
detective show, whatever. And then it became like an origin for every Batman villain ever, and then eventually an origin for Batman. Right.
Right.
And that, so like things change over time.
Yeah, it's called
So-
ratings.
Well, yeah, obviously. So, it'd be interesting. I mean, look, it's been a while since we've had Superman in Supergirl and stuff like that in these shows, but it's been a while since we've had a Superman television show. Lois and Clark was, it's an underrated show in a lot of
Mhm.
ways.
I love that
This
show.
isn't going to be that, but, and we had Smallville, obviously, which again, but
Mhm.
that wasn't, we didn't get Superman week to week or
There was
Right.
also Krypton, wasn't there?
Krypton, but that's a Krypton.
That was like
that,
like the grandfather of Superman.
Yeah. What
Mhm.
channel was that on?
That
I
was on-
It was
remember.
on Sci-Fi.
Yeah.
I remember watching a few.
It had a
episodes.
a strong first season.
Yeah, and then it got treated like a lot of sci-fi channel
Well,
Mm.
yeah.
shows do, and that was that. But
But so like let me wrap my brains around this. He has children in this show, right? Like Clark has 2 kids. Is that right? Is that
I haven't read. I believe there are-
Those two guys. I mean,
Yeah,
those
the-
two boys.
yeah, aren't they like his kids?
I don't know.
Cuz like he's like they're like you're Superman, like no way. And like picks up a truck
Yeah.
and they're like holy shit, you are Superman.
Maybe they're like neighbors' kids.
I have
it,
no
it
idea.
wasn't
Yeah.
clear. It wasn't clear.
Yeah, I couldn't figure it out, but I know that. So like at some point in Arrowverse, Lois is pregnant, and then I think these are his kids.
Oh. I don't
I
like
think
that.
these are his kids, or at least one of them might be.
yeah,
I
they're
don't know.
definitely parents, which is
Yeah.
it's a fun story.
Is it a fun story?
No, I don't mean the fact
You're
that
like it's a fun story.
no, I mean that this
Parents
idea
that
of
no
Superman
parent
and
ever.
Lois in the comics have had some fun storylines, being dealing with their son and trying to raise him and things like that.
Yeah.
It's added like a different
His
dimension.
name is Jonathan.
Jonathan, yeah, which is
Okay.
after the father, but is after his grandfather, or his,
Yeah.
his Earth grandfather, I guess.
Right.
Technically.
Oh, that's it. Vanana's out. She's like,
I'm
done,
not into it.
tucked out.
No, I'm not into it.
Yep. I
There-
mean, it's an interesting take. You
there
you,
are
your
two
dad
sons,
as a there are two
There are
sons.
two sons, yeah.
Yeah.
Jordan and Jonathan.
Mm.
So like, imagine your father's like the greatest superhero that ever lived, and you're like, God, Dad, you're so not cool. Why can't you just be like Superman? And he's like,
I'll show
you
you.
know what I mean? I'll show you. I'll give you the epic super
Yeah.
smackdown. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a way to ground the character. I mean, in a sense, because we've seen. I mean, without that element of it, this then becomes another like villain of the week Superman show. And I don't
Right.
think that anybody needs that. We've had enough of that, and it's also a story that you're not going to see probably, in a movie. So like we mentioned how WandaVision, which again is a very different thing, but how WandaVision is something we probably wouldn't have seen in a movie.
Right.
Like this is something that you're probably not going to see in a movie.
That's
Yeah,
a good
like-
point.
The story of Superman and Lois raising their children, and dealing with them having to balance work.
Yeah,
superhero, and family. That's not
he's
something-
got a girlfriend. He stayed out late. Like, let me go fly over there and go X-ray her house.
And it's also a way to minimize that's always been one of the issues with these Superman shows, like especially with Smallville and with Lois and Clark, was that you have to kind of minimize Superman because there's only so much room in the budget, especially on the television.
Right.
To have
Mhm.
all of that big action. Like, so you have to build a show that's interesting around the fact that, yes, he's Superman, but he can't be Superman every second of the episode.
Right.
You may have to have some episodes where he's barely Superman.
He's like just
Clark
Clark
Kent raising his kid.
Yeah.
So that's going to be
working on the
that's
farm,
challenge.
trying to raise a family.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
As long as none of those kids push pianos, I'm cool. I hate Superman Returns. Worst
Yes, we
Superman
know.
movie ever made.
We know.
I swear to God.
I'll
Quest
pass
for-
on that one.
Quest
I
for
will pass.
Peace is way better than Superman Returns. I said it.
So one thing I know Aaron does love is Bond. And
Yeah.
he's gonna have to wait even longer.
But you know what? If it comes around my birthday, I'm cool with it.
It's October 8th now.
Nope, that is not my birthday, but close enough.
Yeah, so I think that was the date. They moved it to so it was supposed to come out now April whatever 2nd or April
Yeah,
something.
that's not gonna
Now it's no, it's not. Now they moved it to October. I think it said October 8th. The thing
Yeah.
read,
So we talked a little bit about this last week.
yeah.
Told you
And they
so.
officially-
Sounds like I mean, hey, like how and where we heard that and then bubbled that out there because like no one was talking about it. That's cool. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
it was like foresight. It was like ESP.
yeah. So move to the fall, which I imagine that there will be other films doing the same thing. April, as we mentioned last week, April and the spring time period is going to be crazy.
Well, I mean, here we are. We're a week away from February, right? As we record this, and I
Jeez.
mean, it's not like a month or two from now. It looks like things are going to be dramatically different.
Right.
So, I mean, the question I have is, and this isn't even necessarily Bond related, but it is related to this situation, is that, let's say that Disney isn't confident
Black Widow
in being able to release Black Widow in May.
No,
drop
that's
that
not-
shit like it's hot on
Do
Premiere
they
Access.
just say the hell with it? Do they decide to push it again, or do they
Drop
say
that
no, we're
shit.
gonna do Premiere Access like they did for Mulan?
I feel like Black Widow might be setting something up.
Yeah,
And
now
that's why they're not gonna drop it on Disney Plus. But at this point, they're running into the same issue that Warner Brothers ran into with Wonder Woman, which is it loses relevance the longer it's not in theaters or accessible to the public.
Especially with these other properties like Wanda, everyone's talking WandaVision, and they'll be talking Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Right. So it's like it's
Wonder
not
Woman
stopping
did not
anyone.
do that.
but what I'm saying is that it's not stopping people from talking about the properties. It's getting people really excited. They have access to it. Like let's just play it for what it is. People are not going to the theaters. They're not going to go to the theaters for quite some time. Okay. They should just drop it Premiere Access. They're gonna make money.
Right.
Like,
and
they're going they're gonna make a lot more money than I think Wonder Woman 84 would be making.
Yeah. And the other thing too is time, right? So I mean, right now Black Widow's scheduled to come out May 7th.
Yeah.
But then you have Shang-Chi on July 9th, you have Eternals on November 5th, and you have assuming the new Spider-Man movie still coming out in December, you have that in December. So like, where would they move it? And if it has to come out before those movies,
just drop it.
Continuity purposes, like you're going to start to get, because May, what are you going to do? Where are you going to move it to? You're going to have 2 movies come out in July now.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, and then you don't want to start shifting your entire slate again.
Right.
Again.
Because that becomes problematic. So you're right. I think, they still have time, but I mean, at some point they're going to have to make a decision, right? Like for marketing purposes.
100%. And the other thing too, and the toys are like already gone, like out and gone, because that thing was November of last year.
Yeah.
Even before, May of last year. What am I talking about?
Right.
What?
It was originally May.
Yeah, the original release date of Black Widow was May of last year. Crazy.
Bond's original release date was April 10th of last year.
That's crazy. But like, here's the thing. So I say, if I were Disney, I'm not, I'd move Black Widow to Premiere Access. If anything changes, Shang-Chi, Eternals are already in the can, right? Those things are done. They're in post. If anything changes, move one of those dates up, and you could still capture, given your movies enough time to breathe between each other, right? If the environment changes, which I don't really think it will, so they can just leave them as is, because or kind of play with the way that Warner Brothers is doing, like drop something on Premiere Access for like a short period of time, and then keep it in theaters at the same time. You know what I mean? Like. Figure that strategy out, but Black Widow at this point, just release it.
Yeah.
On Premiere Access, because I forgot how long we waited for Mulan to hit Disney Plus for free. Was it like
it was December,
2 months?
Yeah.
Right. 2
was
months.
it 2 months or longer than that? I feel like
it was 2 months.
Okay. I felt like it
Around
was longer than that.
was it 3?
I almost feel like Mulan
Yeah,
dropped like in August, and then it was like December.
It was the first week of December for sure that it went
Yeah,
that it
yeah,
went
but
free.
or whatever you
but
call
when did it hit?
it. So
premiere
here we
access?
go. So it was
I
premiere
thought it was like
access.
September.
It was September 4th. And then it where
So 3 months.
yeah, and then December 4th is when it became available to
I
everybody.
mean, and I'm telling you, I think Black Widow will kill on Disney Plus. You want to talk about a moment that will galvanize, like people, like anyone who was on the fence about Disney Plus will jump and go and just to catch Black Widow.
Yeah, especially if that's like the only place that they can see it.
Exactly.
You
I mean,
know,
I would
Scarlett Johansson has already. It's not even like you have a new actress, playing Black Widow. It's like you have Scarlett who originated the role,
Mhm.
and she's finishing it. And you have everything that happened in Infinity War and Endgame. Like, we want more of her, and we want more of her, even if it is in her past.
Yeah.
So that's just going to bring people.
Oh, and here's the thing too, from a budget perspective. Now the budget for this movie is anywhere between 150 and 200 million, right? So,
Right.
which is what I read the budget for Falcon and Winter Soldier was. So clearly Disney and Marvel Studios does not have a problem using Disney Plus to release movie or
Right.
things that cost hundreds of millions of dollars, because there's obviously return on that investment. So if you're going to make Falcon and Winter Soldier for Disney Plus, spending that same amount of money, it makes sense to me that you would have no problem if you wanted to put Black Widow on Premier Access, where you're going to charge extra money on top of the subscription and still have some theatrical release, window there for people who want to go or can go, and for overseas and all of that stuff. And who knows? We don't know what things are going to be like in May, but it's not like you can make the decision on May 1st.
No.
You have to start making this decision like February, March. You're going to have an idea of what you're going to do with this.
Yeah.
I think it's going to come soon. That decision needs to be made.
It has to be
sooner than later.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple of other timing things that I think will lend itself nicely. Like, what's the actor that plays Hoop on Stranger Things? That's in Black Widow. What's that guy's name?
David Harbour.
David Harbour. So Stranger Things is about to be released again.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna be riding high off of that. I just think the timing is right. Just drop it.
Yeah.
Do it on Disney Plus.
Just like HBO Max is doing with, well, not just like, because they're not charging extra, but they are going to be releasing Godzilla versus Kong in March on.
Just had its first trailer.
It just had its first trailer after that little tease that we got. And so, I mean, I'm a lifelong Godzilla fan. I'm a lifelong King Kong fan. I grew up watching those movies. I grew up, the best part of Thanksgiving for me was the Godzilla, King Kong movies, marathons, whatever that we would get here in New York on Channel 9. Like, that was the ultimate.
UPN 9.
No, it's probably like
back then it was just WWO.
Oh, not even UPN.
No, it was just a local thing back then. And then you had and I mean, I own like the amazing Criterion Collection Blu-ray set that they did for Godzilla. That's spectacular. Anyway, that's right in my wheelhouse. And not that I've loved all of them, right? Hate the Matthew Broderick one. Almost walked out of the Gareth Evans one, right? But I Godzilla King of the Monsters was okay. I think I said it was like a great hour and 40-minute Godzilla movie that was 2.5 hours long. But it was okay. It was better. And I liked Kong Skull Island way more.
Yeah, I thought that was good.
Having said all of that, this trailer got me kind of pumped and excited. Now, I have no idea what anything in and around the battles is going to be. And that's always the key to some of these movies. But
like, does that shit even matter?
Well, it doesn't. Yes and no. Like,
you know what I mean? Because are you like, do you actually give a shit about the human beings
No,
in movies?
in Godzilla King of the Monsters, you don't, only because they really don't give you reason to, because the
Yeah.
humans are just there for the sake of advancing story, kind of.
Mhm.
They're there because you have to be. But no, I mean, I grew up watching, like I said, those Godzilla movies, like the original Toho Godzilla movies. I mean, I had no idea what the human plots were. None.
Like, who
No,
cares?
like none of that
Thousands of you
mattered.
guys are getting stepped on right now.
Yeah, I mean, there were very few of those movies where I actually did get what the plot was for and they usually were not that fascinating. I mean, look, not all of those movies are high art,
Yeah.
hint, hint. So, some are, some aren't. And obviously the original King Kong is a classic. And there is an interesting human storyline there in that movie.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's so that's funny because I have not seen any of the new Godzilla films. Like, I didn't see the Gareth Edwards film, and I didn't see Godzilla King of the Monsters. It's on my queue. Did see Skull Kong Island, yeah, Kong Skull Island. Um, I'm also a big fan of Kong, and I love the interaction he has with other humans. Well, not other with humans, and the idea that they're using a child to kind of like, manipulate him in a way.
Access him, yeah.
Yeah, it seems really cool and interesting, right? But then at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't give a shit about that little girl. Like, I just want to see these two beasts throw down, because that's all I give a shit about. And I showed I was watching the trailer, and I don't, I don't really give a shit about any of this stuff. And I'm like, I think I gotta see this movie. Like, I think I need to watch it, because it just looks like Power Rangers or something like that. I don't even
Yeah,
know.
I was thinking Power Rangers.
That's exactly where my brain went. I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is literally like the Zords is coming up and like doing war, and like, who cares about human being and human life? And then I'm like, oh, Millie Bobby Brown is in this, like, whatever.
she was in. So there's a couple.
She was in the
characters
first, yeah.
that were in Godzilla King of the Monsters. There's
I'm like,
3 of the characters.
who cares about you? Like, I'm not here for you.
Okay.
I'm here for these two things, like, going at it.
I love Alexander Skarsgård. So when I saw him appear in the trailer, I was like, "Ooh, yes,"
But like,
That's
what is the point?
okay. Well, this is where I'm going to be a regular girl. I don't like monster movies. Not really my thing. Like,
Yeah.
I really don't care about these oversized, creatures,
Kaiju.
monsters. Like, yeah, like I would say in that type of genre, I would say the monsters, creature stuff is like kind of my least favorite. However, in this trailer, the beatdowns that they were showing between like Kong and Godzilla, I was like, oh, that looks interesting.
Like, Kong just right hooks this
Yes.
lizard, like,
Did you see that?
Blah!
And it didn't land like in a wacky monster movie, like cartoony way. Like, it's like he lands like
It's like
punch
it
would
looks
land.
like motion capture. Like, that's
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah.
It looks
That's
good.
a legit right hook that he just,
Yes.
blah,
And there was
and
no
then, like, Godzilla, like,
overreaction either. Like, it's not like Godzilla flew like 100 yards
no,
back.
no, no.
Like
He just
what
kind
you
of
would
took it
see
off the
in the movie.
face.
Like, oh, all right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
look, so there is a story arc that they're weaving, more so with Kong Skull Island and Godzilla King of the Monsters. I mean, they hinted at it. Well, not hinted. It's in the Gareth Edwards Godzilla too, but it really gets expanded on afterward, where there's this Monarch Corporation, and there's like these are ancient creatures, right, that have a history. They refer to them as Titans, and there were ancient wars that they fought and things like that. And so they're kind of unraveling that story, and that's really the kind of the meat of the where the human stuff comes into play. And apparently that's getting expanded on a bit in this as well, because they're, like I said, they brought back 3 of the characters from Godzilla King of the Monsters for this, and that was one of their primary roles. And so, and there's references to like some ancient war, like where these two have fought before, back then.
Sure.
And we've seen Because at the end, spoiler alert, at the end of Godzilla King of the Monsters, you see all of the other Titans bowing to Godzilla, right? After he defeats King Ghidorah, and you see them start to head towards Skull Island. So like there's history there. So like there is a kind of a fun monster universe thing that they created. It's not as gripping or riveting, obviously, as what you would get like with an MCU or a DC or
Right.
things like that, but it's still fun in its own way.
So with that, do the other monsters, because it looked like other monsters showed up at Skull Island and like Kong just dismantles
Yeah, I mean, we
those
don't
things.
know again because it's a trailer, so you don't know the content. I
Right.
mean, is that supposed to be the monsters that were heading there at the end of Godzilla King of the
Yeah, I
Monsters?
remember
Was
that
that a
never came out.
flashback to this ancient battle
Oh, gotcha.
that we heard about that was fought and so on? Because
Yeah.
I mean, and I think this is like 50 years or something after Kong Skull Island,
Yeah, because that was in the 70s.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like it was in the 70s if I remember.
That's how they explain
correctly.
why Kong in this movie is the same size as Godzilla. When in
'Cause he was
Skull
still
Island,
growing.
he would be about 200 feet shorter.
Right.
And they said he was basically like a youngling
Young
at
Kong.
that point, and he was there's still 50 years of growth in him.
He's a freaking beast.
Yeah.
He's like Dwayne Johnson getting ready for
Oh God.
Black Adam.
or young Rock.
Seriously.
Gorilla power.
Yeah.
Beast mode.
He's a beast. He is a beast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, it looked crazy. I mean,
Yeah. And I mean,
I'll watch it.
the funny thing is I'm actually, this is one of these movies. So this is exactly the kind of movie. And I know people are going to say, oh, you need to watch it on the big screen.
Nah,
No, this is
check that
exactly
shit
the kind of
at
movie that I am excited that I do not have to wait till
yeah.
because it's not a movie that I probably would have gone to a theater to see. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't have. I guess it depends. If hard to remember what normal times were like when there were multiple movies to go see and to choose from. But like, this is one of those where it's like tailor made for me to be able to sit on my couch and watch it. So I'm pumped about that. And another movie that I'm going to be able to watch on my couch, because that was the intention, is Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, the only thing is, I'm going to have to get up and walk a lot because
4 hours, man.
This thing has
Holy
gone
shit.
back to being one movie. So it originally was going to be a mini series, right? It was going to be like 4 episodes or whatever, or 4 hours broken up into X amount of episodes. Now it's back to being one 4-hour movie, which explains why about a month or two ago we were hearing rumblings that like, oh, we should try to get this released theatrically, like in a limited theatrical run. And I was like, well, how's that going to happen? It's a mini series now, but nope. Apparently it's back to being a movie. And 4 hours is that's just too long. I mean, there are not and I don't know if it's exactly 4 hours or whatever, but like there is not a movie. I don't care what the genre is. I don't care what the type that I am going to want to sit on my couch or anywhere for that matter in one sitting and sit there for almost 4 hours or 4 hours and watch it and enjoy it. Now, the fact that I'm going to be able to watch it at home means I don't have to watch it in one sitting, but like, I don't really know if I want to watch a movie in multiple sittings like that. Like, it's not kind of how I want to.
I couldn't make it through The Irishman.
I wouldn't even bother.
Oh yeah, The Irishman was the last movie. Yep, we had to pause that too.
That was like
right?
3 hours.
That was like 3.5 or something like that.
That shit was long as a mother.
Yeah, way too long.
This is a different thing, but like I'm wondering why. Like,
Same.
what's the upside to making this a 4-hour movie as opposed to, unless if you're telling the same story, right? And it's really just a matter of like editing. I mean, maybe they didn't want to go through the hassle of editing this to make it cohesive episodes, because it is different storytelling, right? Making a mini series is not taking a movie and breaking it up into multiple parts and here's your edit. Like, you have to construct episodes, right, that have a cohesive story within them, and maybe that became too difficult, so it was wound up being a better narrative just all crammed together as one long movie, which would make sense because it is a movie.
You can't just say like, all right, the first hour we're just going to cut it there and
Yeah.
show the first hour and the second hour and the third hour and the fourth hour, because the first hour can cut in the middle of a scene.
Sure.
So I'm asking the same question, like, why turn it back into a movie format that's 4 hours long? The episodes or the mini series of 1 hour each sounded so good, and it sounded digestible, and perhaps it fell apart in the editing room. Chris,
I just
thinking that's
I
what
just
it
didn't
is. Yeah.
see how he was gonna cut it into 4 individual sections, because each of those need to have a rise and fall, right? You can't just, and you can't cliffhang it, because that's just weird. Like I just I expected it to be, a movie, not 4 hours. I mean, the last movie that I watched besides The Irishman was like the extended versions of the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Same here.
Mhm.
And like all of the stuff that was in there was like filler stuff. Like I got why they cut it, because you just added a little bit more context, a little more color here. Nothing, nothing earth shattering, right? Maybe the battle scene was like 5 minutes longer, 2 minutes longer, which is substantial. But for this, it just feels gratuitous. A 4 hour, so it makes me feel like all of the reshoots that happened were to help shape the film narrative, right? Because I feel like we're going to get to a point where it's going to be like, first half of the movie is doom and gloom and like, oh, we're going to bring back all these characters and everyone's fighting Superman. Like it's going to be the Joker's fighting Superman, Deathstroke's fighting Superman, blah, 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 blah. And then, and then the Flash goes back into time and then they reverse stuff. I feel like this is how it's going to all work out. And then the back end of it is like a time jump. And we're kind of back on track to the normal Justice League film.
They needed to. We knew that, or we assumed that they were going to have to do something to shift the narrative, because the where Zack Snyder was going with this originally was building to something else that we may or may not, and probably are not going to get, right? Like this was going to build to a bigger story, and that's not going to happen. So we knew that he was going to have to figure it out. Like, how is this going to end? Because you can't end it on a cliffhanger. You can't end it like leading to something that you're not going to see. So that part I figured, but I just think that once you decide that this is going to be a movie, and it always was a movie. So like I said, so it should have always been looked at as a movie. Like that's where maybe you start tightening it up. And you can't tell me that, unless you're going to tell me that these reshoots that he's done and this extra stuff and all this stuff is going to complete one big story. Like I think that there was probably room to cut this.
Yeah, it's going to be all filler. Like it's going to be like, oh, here's Victor Stone's full story. Here's Barry Allen's full story. And you're going to be like,
yeah, I
don't give a shit about you, Ezra Miller. Oh.
It's just tough. I mean,
Ray
even
Fisher.
the Lord of the Rings extended editions. I mean, I watched them, but I don't watch them like often, and I enjoy them. But like you said, there is a lot of filler in there, right? Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, I had seen the theatrical version.
Yeah, same.
But it's also not Lord of the Rings that we never saw.
It's not an epic.
And it's like another different cut that people are asking for. Yeah. It's just, I'm kind of like, I'm like scratching my eyeball, because I'm just kind of so over this. Like the whole movement, great. People got what they wanted, but now you're turning it into a much bigger thing than it actually was supposed to be.
It is the movie that for 4 years is like not stopped been talked about. Like for more than 4 years.
It started as the movie. It started as like, okay, I'm going to do my cut, right? And then it's like, now we got to reshoot. And then now we're going to be 4-hour different episodes. And now we're going back. It's like, just figure it out. I think he's being too precious about it.
Yeah.
That nothing is, because there's a lot of pressure, right? So I think he's being too precious about the whole project, and that's why it's like the back and forth. Because when you're developing a project like with like Marvel Phase 4, there's an end game, right? You kind of like can track it. You know where you want the story to go. For something like the Snyder cut, it's open and ended. Like it just starts there. People just want to see your version, and it's not going to go anywhere. You're not building anything. You're not adding to anything else. Like Chris said, you're not going to end it on a cliffhanger because there is no second project.
Yeah. We'll see what
Yeah, I mean,
happens
we'll see what it
because
winds
like
up
Warner
being.
Media is throwing money like they got it.
Yeah.
I think it's probably gonna suck. So
I mean, here's the thing: all of this pomp and circumstance, and it could be a dumpster fire too. You know what I mean? Like that. That to
Yeah.
me, is like, can you imagine what's going to happen when the reviewers get their hands on this cut? Like, are they going to be like, "Oh my god, this is the best thing ever! I'm so glad that Zack Snyder finished it," or are they going to be like, "Yo, this movie was trash.
That
It should
could
never
be
been
that
made."
could be another reason why it's so long, because he might be trying to appease like all his fans, like the entire fan base, so not wanting to cut anything out, like showing like elongated storylines. He might not want to cut it to even
Yeah.
3 hours because they don't want those reviews saying like, his cut was just similar.
Well, I also think it too. It's because there is a lot of story to tell, right? And this movie was going to lead to a bigger universe and other solo films. And so, like Aaron said before, like I have a feeling that it's just maybe the fact that he realizes that this is going to be, in some cases, the last of these versions of these characters, or his vision for these characters that you're going to see. I mean, it's not going to be the last time we see Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. It's probably not going to be the last time we even see, at least in some way, shape, or form, Ben Affleck's Batman, right? But we're going to see more Aquaman. But we've already, like, the versions of Wonder Woman and the versions of Aquaman that we've gotten post Justice League are not really his visions for those characters.
No.
They're different. They're lighter. They're more colorful. They're different feel, different tone. So this is his last shot to kind of complete his story. And if he wants this to be able to fit to where you're going to be able to watch Man of Steel, BVS, and then this movie together, then he is going to have to flesh some stuff out. He was either going to have to cut out a lot of stuff, which he's obviously not going to do, because then you're back to the same issue that you had with the theatrical cut, kind of, or he had to go big and expand. Right. It's just, for me as a viewer, like, this becomes a little bit more difficult for me, because I am excited for this. I do want to see it. I am interested in it from a lot of different perspectives, but I don't really want to sit 4 hours. That's a long time to sit. And now, again, I could get up and do other things, but is that how I want to experience a movie? Like, because at that point, then you could have stuck with the miniseries format and let me digest it slowly.
Right.
Because now I'm going to be forced to almost do that on my own. I'm going to be like, all right, I'm 2 hours in. All right, that's good. I got to do something else now, and I'll get back to this later. And I don't know that that's how I really want to experience a movie.
4 hours is, that is so long.
Yeah.
That is so long.
That's really long.
Dense too, because I binged season 3 of Cobra Kai, right, in one sitting, and that was 10 episodes, like a half hour each. So that was, like 5 hours of my life that I but in between episodes, I could get up, I could go around. I wasn't literally just sitting staring at my television for 5 hours watching all of those episodes. I was, but you pause after the episode, do things, get this, that, and this. So in the course of a day, I watched the whole season. I don't want to do that with a movie.
Yeah, you'll be doing it during the Victor Stone highlights and the Flash highlights.
Cobra Kai also, like, all the episodes end so nicely and on a cliffhanger almost. So that's like easy. It tells you what to do.
Right.
You don't have to say like, it's 2 hours. They're still in the middle of this fight scene. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop it right here.
With me, it's more about its time as it relates to the narrative. Like, I could spend 5 hours in a day watching television. I just, I don't want to have to spend 4 hours of my day focus on one thing that's one big story, where I have to take it in as a movie, because it's not designed to be watched at least we don't think, in stages,
Mhm.
right? It's designed to be watched as a film now. So it's different animal. But I know you did, Vanana, finally
Mhm.
finish Cobra Kai. So
I
why don't you
did.
give some thoughts on that before we get out of here?
I did. You know, I have to say I enjoyed the first and second season better than I did the last season. I think they really no pun intended, they really punched up the fighting, and it almost took away from the storyline for me, you know, like just all those excessive big fight scenes. It wasn't a big deal, but I did find myself liking season 1 and season 2. I watched those a lot quicker than this last season, but I love the way it ended. And I said that from the very beginning. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, but probably by now everyone's seen it except for me. I said from the beginning of the season, they got to come together.
Yeah.
They got to come together. I love the flashback scenes where we get a little bit of John Kreese's character and where he comes from. And that's one thing I like about this show is the villains, so-called villains, or the bad guys, or the guys that, you know, aren't so good. They also come from somewhere and they show it. And it's not so black and white, which is what I love about this show, is like you can kind of relate to everyone, you know. I can't stand Tori, right? Because she's just so rough around the edges and she's so mean, but you can see where she's coming from. So I love that the show balances out those type of things. Whereas in the original movies, you know, it's the 80s, there's a clear, I'm the good guy here and this is the bad guy, you know.
Right.
I'm on the good side, you're on the bad side, right? And we're gonna fight. And now in this modern world, it's a little bit more ambiguous, which I think lends to really good storytelling, even though the show is a little bit like cheesy at times, you know, especially with like the lovey-dovey like teenage stuff or the parent stuff. But I like that aspect of it.
There
So
you go.
kind of my take on that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned the crease thing, because I think we didn't talk a little bit about that at all. I like his backstory. It's,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I thought it was an interesting wrinkle to add to that character that we've only seen as a one-dimensional like bad guy, right? But he's got things that have happened to him in his life, and that's kind of shaped who he is.
Sure.
And
And
who
it's going
knows?
to lead to season
Yeah.
where the belief is that it's going to lead to the return of his name, Thomas Ian Nicholas, the guy that was
The
in
dude with the ponytail?
No, what was that guy's name? From Karate Kid 3. Yeah, the guy.
Yeah, the dude with the ponytail.
Yeah, the guy with the ponytail. He was like
Crap.
he almost became an action star for like a minute and a
Yeah.
half. That he's going to be, you know, that's going to tie into that, and that
Well, that's who he
what was
calls at the end.
calling at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just with this season, I don't know. I think my mind wasn't suspended in, you know, that disbelief, but like I had a problem with like the adults when what's his name got his arm broken.
Dimitri.
When Dimitri got his arm broken, right? I was like, now you gotta like sue, like in the real world, right? You would like sue, call the cops. Like I felt like the adults in this situation were not being adults
Dimitri
at
doesn't
all.
have parents. He's too nerdy. His parents left him out of the street.
You know, so there were little things like that I felt like in this season were like a little bit far-fetched. But you know, like
I mean, the fact that they broke that kid's arm like made my stomach churn.
Yeah.
I got to a point I was like, wow, they went full ham on breaking this dude's arm, like legit. And then he's walking around and they draw a big cock on his arm. Like I thought that was hilarious.
I know.
You know, but I did like, you know what the thing that pissed me off? I was like, let these little kids bust up my $1 million home.
Oh my God, I know.
I was like, I would be like, no more Miyagi-Do. Like, I'm going full on, no mercy. I'm killing all of these kids that were
I
that
would
broke into my
press
house. And
charges on
press
every single one
charges?
of them.
I'd be pressing bullets into a clip. Are you kidding me? Done.
That's what I meant. Like the way they're using, I get it. They're using karate to solve, their real problems, but they're almost like, okay, the real world doesn't exist and we can only use karate to solve our problems. Like real adults, kids, I understand, but like you can kind of bend, your suspension of disbelief.
It's very 80s. It is so very 80s. It's funny because we talked a little bit, I don't know, did we about No Retreat, No Surrender, and so I started rewatching that again. Love this movie, like such a guilty pleasure. But the father in the I don't have you Vanana, have you ever seen that movie?
No.
Chris, you're familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Vanana, see the movie.
Okay.
The father at the very beginning of this film, he's like a karate instructor, and he's being pressured by a mob boss to like join this organization. We don't know what this thing's for. I still don't know what's going on. And a guy attacks him, and the first thing he says is karate is not meant to be used aggressively. That's what he says. Right? Like, I'm only supposed to be defending myself, and then he ends up like kicking this guy's ass until Jean-Claude Van Damme pops up and like puts a serious hurting on him. But like, it's so funny, like, and I know that is the fundamentals of karate, right? It's self-defense, never really for aggression, whatever. So and then the guy gets his ass kicked by Van Damme, and then he's like, the only answer is we have to leave the city. So they leave Los Angeles and move to like Seattle.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
There we go.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Total sense.
By the way, the guy with the ponytail, Karate Kid 3, just for the record, is Thomas Ian Griffith. Thomas Ian Nicholas is the guy from American Pie and Rookie of the Year. That would be nearly as interesting if he popped up.
Oh, that dude?
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway,
that's a great movie.
They're both about as relevant as I am at this point.
Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But yeah. So that's so we'll see.
I feel like one more season and then
they need to wrap it up.
And then they got to wrap it up. Yeah.
It was great to see Elizabeth Shue pop up.
It was.
That was dope. And I'll be honest, I'm like, and that's why you've had a longer career, because you're a better actress. Like she crushed. She's so good. She's so good. So good. Like, Ralph Macchio is so bad. He's so bad. Like,
he's not that bad.
Well, I'm sorry. What's his name? William Zabka. He's
Who's
so
that?
much. Is it Zabka?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's better. He's better than Ralph Macchio.
I mean, look, Ralph Macchio has not actually done a lot of acting.
No, because he hasn't aged. He's just like, I'm still.
He was, you could count like on one hand the things that Ralph Macchio has done. Basically,
he's okay. He's not like the most like he's not like the best actor, but I find he's so natural though. Like he just has this like good-hearted nature to him that comes across.
Yeah, I guess. I just love the dickness that comes off of William Zabka's character. I just love it. I love it.
Yeah.
He's such a dick.
I like the fact that, we're seeing a lot of parents now, or like even schools kind of like coddling kids, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone gets a trophy and all that kind of stuff. And I like that we do see that side, but we also see the old school side of teaching kids, which I guess I'm a little on that old school side, is like, get tough, get back up. You know what I mean? Don't be a pansy. Like, let's go get it. Pick yourself back up. When he's getting like that physical therapy with like that frou-frou guy, like all about spirituality. And he's like, no, like, here, try and grab this magazine. Like, this is how you do it. I liked all that stuff.
Yeah. It's good stuff. And it's just covered in cheese.
But if your kid gets a participation trophy, I ain't mad.
Yeah. All right. I guess
Well,
that's it, right?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, that's
so I'll
it.
wrap it up. And on the note, just to point out behind me, you'll notice my tribute to Babylon 5, one of my favorite television shows of all time. Mira Furlan, who was Delenn in that show, passed away this week. She was
Aw.
65. She also was on Lost, which was almost one of my favorite shows of all time until it wasn't. She was Russo on that show as well. Kind of a legendary character in sci-fi. And so anyway, so that's my tribute. If you have never watched Babylon 5, I don't know what the hell you're waiting for. Find it. It's amazing television. It's not like super available. It might be on Amazon Prime now or whatever, but you should check that out. So on that note, check out thefanboygarage.com. You can check out our episodes, our merch store, and also join the conversation on the social media, the Twitter, the Facebook, the Instagram at the Fanboy Garage. And of course, for those of you who are watching us, let all your friends know that they should subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Fanboy Garage Podcast. They should like these episodes, even fire up the notifications so you know exactly when our new episodes drop and all that fun stuff. And for those of you listening on the audio version, check out the video version as well. What are you waiting for? You get to see Aaron and his
bald ass
baldness and everything else.
Chrome dome is like Humpty Dumpty without arms and legs.
Stop.
You can find me on Twitter at RealCLMighty.
You guys can find me at Vanana_TFG.
And before I drop, I just want to give a quick shout out to Special Effects, Comics and Collectibles. My boy Phil, longtime listener, so I have to show support for him. He offers up. It's an awesome auction on Facebook where they auction comics, collectibles. He also can do consignment. So if you have a collection that you want to sell, you can work with him and get that going. But special shout out to him. And in the meantime, and you can find him on Facebook, on Instagram, and I think and on Twitter. But enough of that. You can find me on Twitter at @AARonSpeaks. That is @A_Ron Speaks. Thank you so much for listening to episode 129 of the Fanboy Garage. We will catch you guys next week. Be safe. Later.
Peace.